get into this video then. Why? So straight off the bat then, let's just load them up and I'll show you the difference. So I'm going to load FL. Now I am using FL Studio 9. I haven't upgraded since FL Studio 9 because I haven't needed to. I'm sure they've smoothed it out and made a lot of these little glitches that I find in FL Studio 9 to be a problem. But it's still the overall how it works that bugs me, and you'll see exactly what I mean if I just get on with the video. So I'll load up FL Studio straight away first, so we can see how fast the loading time is, and that is one thing then that really stands out with FL Studio. The load time there is absolutely instant. Hasn't touched the performance on the computer at all. Absolutely instantaneous. What is a problem though is, and as I say, this could be ironed out. They could have sorted this in newer versions. But I don't seem to be able to have much control over this window here. It's kind of stuck behind the start menu. I can press that to full screen it, but I don't seem to be able to. Aha, there. Okay, so this is it. Yeah, so this here is awkward. So I can't just move this window about like I can with other Windows applications. I have to move this by these lines here, like this. And I can't even get to this bottom line because of the start menu is in the way. I'd actually have to move my start menu to be able to get to that bottom. So that is basically my first impression of Fruity Loops as it loads up, compared to and now see Acid. Now Acid does take a bit longer to load, but that's because I believe it can do more. Like I can run FL Studio inside Acid Pro. So first off, I mean, let's just get that out the way, like that you need to sort of see that straight away. So straight out, I can run FL Studio from inside Acid Pro. But I still think it's important to make this video to show the actual differences between how these DAWs operate in terms of how they control, how they what's the day-to-day workflow going to be like. If you're going to be making beats all day, what's your workflow going to be like, and what kind of tracks do you want to be making? There's one little glitch that it seems small, but when you make as many tracks, when you're spending all your every day making tracks, I just want something that's fast, that just gets the job done. I don't need to be messing about with stuff that doesn't need to be there. So little things like that do bug me. So there's the first thing. Now we have the layout as it loads up. So for some reason, when I've loaded this, it has decided to pre-put in samples. I might not want to use them, but it does that. It puts in these things depending on how you load it. I've opened it inside Acid Pro, so the stuff that it puts here is different to if you just open FL Studio on its own. And every time it's stuff that I probably don't want there. I always want to replace it with something else. I generally don't want to use the things that are there, but that's another little moan. When Acid Pro loads up, it's completely blank. That's pretty much how this DAW works. If Linux was a DAW, it would be Acid Pro, because everything about Acid Pro can be customized. The colors can be customized. How the mixer looks can be customized. Every window can be dragged and moved about and or pulled out. Even you can even just pull the windows out the door completely. Move those onto another screen. All of my main tools are just in tabs down here. I can move the tabs around if I need to move the tabs around. So there's just a couple of little differences that I've noticed straight out the box. These windows can be moved, but they can't be moved outside of the FL Studio window. So I can't just drag this onto monitor 2 without first having to move it across like that. So that's something else. Again, it seems like a small thing, but when you just wanting to just, I need that to be moved over there, it does make a big difference in the time that you spend putting tracks together. Not having to do that. If I'm working on other things in the background, I need to just be able to move the window and work on the thing in the background, not having to move that line and then move that line. It's very annoying. As I say, this is an earlier version of Fruity Loops, FL Studio 9. It's a little thing that they might have changed in an update. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if FL Studio has improved the way that the window works. Moving on, and that is the BPMs. The BPM in FL Studio literally goes up to absolutely crazy amounts. I mean, it just keeps on going. I cannot possibly imagine that you would ever need more than 700 BPM. That thing just keeps on going. And that is definitely different to Acid Pro. So Acid Pro default is 200, but you can go into the options and you can set to 300 BPM. You can only go to a maximum of 300 BPM. So on the slider here, I've got 200 as the maximum because I can't see that I need to go more than 200, to be honest. But if I wanted to, I could increase that so that it can go up as high as 300, but it's not something that I use. So moving on, so loading samples then. So in Acid Pro, I can just load samples by going into Explorer and just dragging things into the project. How that compares on FL Studio, well, as I say, it already has some things already loaded into it. You don't have to use them, but it does. So let's just focus on this top one here, and let's say I want to use this aim and break from the Explorer here. I've right clicked on it, so if I left click on it, it brings up this little thing here. I can't just drag it from Windows Explorer. I'd actually have to find this one individual file. So if you're making drum patterns that have got 3 different hi-hats, 4 different snares, 2 different kick drums, you have to find all of those individually. So if you've got, let's say, a sample pack that you've made with over 1,000 samples available on Bandcamp, and you would basically have to go through all of those. You can't just preview them like you can in Acid Pro and then just drag them into the project. So that's very time consuming as well. Also, so you can see how long it's going to take to individually, so let's say I want to make a drum pattern with 8 different sounds. In Acid Pro, I just select the different sounds and drag them into the project, and it will just keep adding them into the tracks like this. It will just keep adding more. With this, open them. So yeah, I have to individually find them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what happens if I get to the bottom here? Let's say I want, can I right click and add more tracks? No. On Acid Pro I can just right click and keep adding more tracks. I can just keep adding so many that I need a folder track and then put stuff into the folder, because there's now so many on the screen I can't see what else is going on, so I'll just make a folder track and put them in there. So now I've got all those tracks in there, but yes, so what happens? So I'm trying to right click to make more. No, nothing there. I think it's a bit fiddly having to do that. I've also noticed you can't see these menus popping up. I've noticed it's not loading these menus on my screen recording software. It's not detecting the menus popping up in FL Studio. That's very strange. When I right click, I'm getting menus popping up here, but you're not seeing those on the screen recording for some reason. So anyway, let's move on then. So that's basically just trying to open a file inside the DAW. Now let's look at MIDI. So let's say you want to write music. That's what I love doing. I love writing music. And this is why I use Acid Pro, because when I add a MIDI track in Acid Pro, I can then just start drawing the track exactly as I want inside Acid Pro. And you can see, if you have used FL Studio, you can already see there that these notes that I've drawn in are all different sizes. This one's 1, that one's 2, that one's 3. In FL Studio, the way it works is you have to go right click on this and go into the piano roll. And here you have the piano roll section. Now again, I'm going to have this problem with the windows. Now this is something they could have improved in later versions, but again I'm now having to mess about with these windows in order to, okay, now I've got the window, great. So I've got the window, and this is where it gets annoying. So I'm drawing these notes, and you can see here, even though I'm trying to draw a long note, it just keeps on putting in these little notes. And that's because in FL Studio you have to tell it how big the notes are that you want, which is kind of annoying if you already know how big the notes are you want and you just want to draw them in. You know, I want that one there, and then I want to zoom in, and I want to draw 3 little ones, and I want to put one there, and I want to put one up there. It's just so quick. And in FL Studio I would have to tell it that I want the note now to be longer. Like, what is actually going on here? Why is this so complicated? Why am I still just drawing these same size notes? Why isn't there just a simple right click option? Just right click and bring up the menu that I need. Why can't I draw longer notes? I just want longer notes. How do I draw longer notes? So anyway, you can see in the time that I'm faffing about there trying to find longer notes, I could have just drawn in these notes by now, you know. I could have literally just finished it, you know. And that's really why Acid Pro for me is my favourite software, because I can just get on with the track. In FL Studio, you have to make patterns. So this is pattern, that was pattern 1 here that we just made here, pattern 1. And then you can select pattern 2 and you can put something in pattern 2. So let's say you want to put in some notes again. Again, I'm still stuck with these same size notes, but now I've drawn something on the string. So on pattern 1 I've got something on the flange, and on pattern 2 I've got something on the string. And then the way this works, this is absolutely madness. So this is your timeline, and to draw things on the timeline, I think, yes, you use the pencil tool, and it just draws in these blocks for you, and that is just drawing anywhere I click. It's just drawing pattern 2, and then if I change to pattern 1, it's now drawing the other one. I'll just see if I can drag this out for you. Yeah, it's annoying I can't just move the window like that. That is frustrating. Okay, yeah, so that just disappeared for a minute there. Yeah, because I was trying to move the window. So yes, you can just draw these literally anywhere you want. So I'm drawing pattern 1 now, then I can switch to pattern 2, and now I'm drawing pattern 2. And the thing that I really find annoying about this is the fact that um, I make so many patterns. You know, when I'm making a drum and bass track, I've made, you know, maybe 4 different patterns just for the hi-hats. Then I've made 4 different patterns for the snares, and then I've made 4 different patterns for the kick drums. How are you supposed to remember all the different patterns and then draw it in? With Acid Pro, I'm just making patterns. I'm going in, I'm zooming in and chopping bits and editing bits and moving bits about and copying and pasting bits about, and everything I'm doing is making progress. Like if I want to make a loop, like, okay, so this is the first loop there, and then I want to move on to my pattern 2. There's my pattern 2, you know. So I could say, yeah, these ones are pattern 1, these ones are pattern 2. Just control those and paste those over here. It just seems in comparison that this is overly confusing. It's like you're doing the work twice. You've got to make this pattern and then draw it into the timeline. And the tracks don't seem to have any meaning to them. Like I'm just drawing pattern 2 in track 3 and drawing it there. Pattern 2's everywhere now. Whereas in Acid Pro, each track has actual relevance and meaning, and so on and so on. And I'm sure you can do all that in FL Studio, but it just seems long to do that when we move on to the next thing, which is getting instruments. So getting instruments in Acid Pro is really simple. You can see you've got all your buttons here to add stuff. So if I want to add let's add serum. There we go. So I'm going to add serum in. There's serum. And when I compare that to the FL Studio experience, so here it is in FL Studio. Now, I keep pressing the wrong button there. So FL Studio. So you can, as I say, so you can right click these boxes here. I don't know how you can add more of them, and sometimes when you load FL Studio it doesn't put this many. Sometimes it only puts 4, sometimes it puts 1. There's obviously a way to change that, but again it all just seems so overly long and complicated when I can just keep right clicking, adding tracks, or just keep pressing the add tracks button down here, or just keep adding audio tracks, just keep adding them and adding them and adding them, and now add some MIDI tracks. There's it, and then I'm just okay. So anyway, moving on. So let's look at this synth thing. So let's say I want to open a synth in Acid Pro. So I just click there and open my synth. It's that quick. Go into my synth properties, and Serum is right there. In this one, when I right click and go to insert, so you go right click and then insert, so that's already, I'm having to go into another menu. In this one, I've got one menu, right click, one menu, bang, one button, done. In here, I'm already having to go into a second menu. So I've right clicked, then I'm having to find another small menu to start inserting things inside here. So you can see it has got the 3x oscillator. This is a synth that the FL Studio has. It doesn't run in Acid Pro, but you can run it from inside FL Studio. Also here, so these are all the tools that FL Studio's got. But where are all the tools that I've got installed? Where's Massive? Where's Serum? Again, this is something they might have updated in newer versions, but at the minute, I can't see Massive or Serum in there at all. I think I have to right click this, insert more. No. Oh wait, but I think that insert more, I think that's where it was showing Serum. Is that where Serum is? Okay, there's Serum. Let's see if that actually works. I now select Serum, right click, insert. Oh yeah, okay, so I can now. Okay, so that's good. That is good. So you can get Serum. It's in a nice window. I can't take it outside of FL Studio, but at least I've been able to load that. I think it's a bit fiddly having to do that, although I think once you've added it in here, it's there ready. But again, there's a lot of extra menus there and a lot of extra little clicks just to get that. In fact, I've also duplicating tracks. So let's say on pattern 1, so on pattern 1, still drawing these same size notes. How do I change the size of the notes? How do I make a long note? How do I make a long note and then a really short one after it in 2 seconds? How do I just do that? How do I just do that in FL Studio? If anyone knows that, let me know in the comments. So anyway, duplicating tracks. Let's say I've made this pattern. Let's say I want to duplicate tracks, clone it. So I've made a clone. And is that now playing the same notes? No, it's not. And that's not good, because if I'm trying to make a bass line and I want it to have some sub bass and some not sub bass layered over the top of it, so it has a complete sound, like maybe some mid-range thrown in there, I need to be able to duplicate it, right click, duplicate, and then I have that one playing with one harmonic and that one playing with a slightly different harmonic, and that's how you layer the sounds and get big sounds. So I've just duplicated those. Can I do that in FL Studio? Now I know they added this to FL Studio, but I know it was a very recent update. It was only in the last 3 years I think they added that, and Acid Pro has been able to do that since 2005. let's try something else as well. So let's say I want to add in an aim and break, and I want to change the aim and break. So I've got an aim and break at the top, so you saw how quick it was to drag that in. And if I want to change how many beats that's spread over, I can just go into the clip properties and spread it over 32 beats instead of 16. So there you go, it's done it, it's quick, it's done. How do I even get the aim and break into here in order to do it? Okay, so the way that compares in Fruity Loops is you can drag and drop, but you do have to first open something. So inside Fruity Loops, if you open this menu, which it's not loading, it's not showing the menus on the screen recording software for some reason, but if you open the menu and go to so I'm going to put in this slice X, and it has this slice X here. Now if I drop in so if I just try and drop in the aim and break into Fruity Loops, it doesn't do anything. It's still got the other instrument in there from before, and I'm trying to drag it into the project, doesn't do anything. I can right click, insert, and find it, but it takes a long time to do it. So this is how Fruity Loops works. It's different. So it has this slice X, and is it quicker though? Is it necessary? And all of these kind of things. Plus there's third-party plugins that Acid Pro has that can replicate a lot of this stuff, but I'll show you what it does. So I can actually just drag the break into there, and so in here it's now put this on the piano roll. It's now, I can now move these individual sounds around. So there's the snare, there's another snare. Compared to Acid Pro, which has a chopper. The way it's supposed to work is I've got the break here, and I can just select, instead of having these pre-selected parts already selected and already on the piano roll. The way it works in Acid Pro is I can say I'm here on the project, so that's where the line is, and if I just select any part of this, I can zoom in and just literally get as much or as little of it as I want. It's not a pre-selected amount, so in that respect, Acid Pro is better, because on this I can just actually zoom right in and just get whichever part I want. Yes, you can move the parts around in FL Studio, but I think this version of just being able to just go, I want that bit there, and then yeah, you can just press this button and it will start inserting these at the cursor. But it's also pretty quick. Just to, the way I tend to do it is I just play it and I go, oh yeah, I want that little bit there, so I'm going to press the S key, slice that little bit out, and you know, I just play the track and be like, I want so that snare needs to go on that beat, on that one, and that one, you know. And it's just so much quicker, I think, just to build the track in that way, just one, almost like one note at a time. Sometimes you just placing the bits exactly where they need to be placed. And yeah, you can kind of do that with this, but it's overly complicated because you have to, for each pattern, you have to tell it how long is that pattern. Is that pattern 4 beats long, 8 beats long, 16 beats long, 32, 64, 128? How long is that pattern? in Acid Pro, the pattern is, as long as you want the pattern to be, you just keep drawing and drawing and drawing, and then you can just copy and paste bits and carry those bits on. So it's like an unlimited amount of patterns, and the amount of tracks you can have is unlimited. This timeline is limited to, I think, 500 tracks. Acid Pro, you just keep adding tracks, as many as you need. I don't think I've ever seen a track with that many tracks, though, to be honest. I think, but so just going back to these differences, then. So here it has split this up, but yeah, let's say I'm just quite happy then arranging these beats, and I've made a little pattern. There we go. And again, look, it always draws the same size note unless you tell it to draw a different size note. It's just going to keep putting that same size note every time. You can't just it's different. It's different. Arguably, yes, it does have maybe a couple of little things on here that Acid Pro doesn't have directly attached onto it as such, but you can just get things to do that. There is third-party plugins to do that. So anyway, let me just try and explain this problem. I keep going off on a tangent. So this aim and break, let's say it's eight beats long. If I then want to just carry it on, I can't just carry it on by just carrying on. I have to actually find it on a menu somewhere and tell it to be 32 beats instead of 8 beats. This timeline here has run out. That's as many beats as I can press. That's as how long I can't carry on here as easily as I can in Acid Pro. It becomes more, but what I tend to do is record anything that let's say I want to chop up a break or something and mash it all up in here. I can just record that and then just transfer it into Acid. That is actually then much easier than having to remember, okay, so this was pattern 1, that's my first amen, and then the next amen that comes in is going to be pattern 2, so then I put pattern 2 and then pattern 3, if that's how you prefer to do it. So that really is the difference. Then you go into your timeline and you go, now I want to draw pattern 1, now I want to draw pattern 2, but it doesn't matter what track you place them on in Fruity Loops. You can just literally place these anywhere. In Acid, you kind of keep everything on one track, like your MIDI track for your instrument stays on one line, so you have all your sub bass on one line, and you could arrange it like that on Fruity Loops, but I can imagine it gets quite confusing. Well, I know it does because I've made 2 tracks on Fruity Loops and I just found it really difficult because I had so many different patterns I'd made, and then I was having to remember which pattern was which, going through it. Was it pattern 5? Was it pattern 4? And then I'd start drawing pattern 1 up here, and then obviously this window problem as well. I can't just move the window about and make things bigger. I can't just zoom in and out with the mouse and look at things quickly, and that then really slowed up the whole process of getting on here. Yes, Fruity Loops does have some pretty cool plugins built in, but pretty much all of those can be replicated by third-party plugins these days, most of which are free. So if all you need is a DAW to run these plugins and just start getting on with things, I'd probably learn Acid Pro because it is a little bit cheaper, and I think the ones these days come with Serum as well, which is really good, because that really kind of let Acid down, not come in with any instruments other than the orchestral ones that Sony provided. And Yeah, so that's how they compare in terms of chopping it and arranging and aiming. So in Acid Pro, so the way you adjust the sound, the pitch of the drums in, or the sound, whatever it is. This just happens to be a drum. Is by using the piano roll. Actually, by using the piano roll to move the notes up and down. In Acid Pro, you can use the plus and the minus button to shift the pitch of the note up or down. So if you want it to be a high pitched snare drum, you would just press the plus button a couple of times, just tap it a couple of times to lift the note higher and higher. Or get a third party plugin sampler where you can then just drag the drum sound that you've got, like the snare or the whatever sound that you're trying to move up and down. If you want to play it on a keyboard as an instrument, get a third party plugin sampler. I'm using I use this one, and the way that this works is I can just get any sound and drop it into the sampler, exactly how the Slice X works in FL Studio. See, I think I've killed it because I'm doing too much in Fruity Loops. Probably wouldn't normally have a crash, but I think because I've been chopping all of that up in FL Studio. So I'm just going to load Acid back up and show you the third party plugin that you can use instead of having the Slice X tool in FL Studio, and that way you'll be able to play any sound, any sound that you've got, like a single drum sound, as an instrument on the keyboard. I need to just load up this plugin here, and then I can drag my drum sound into this, and there it is, and that's it. So now I can start playing low notes, high notes, and this is normally what I would use inside Acid Pro. Like I say, these days I don't really bother with FL Studio because I can run all of the instruments inside Acid Pro. But yeah, that's how you would normally do it in Acid Pro, which is kind of different to the way that Fruity Loops chops it. So Fruity Loops has chopped it, the way Fruity Loops has chopped it is it's actually just split the notes up, and then depending on whereabouts in the sample it is whereabouts it is on the keyboard. Whereas on this, I've got like a full musical scale of the sound. So I quite like this tool. This is usually what I would use for sampling, really. If this is the kind of production you want to make, where you just want to be able to just draw your track in, just start drawing it in, then Acid Pro is the right software for you. If you're a one person that knows about instruments and music theory, you understand how to make a melody, and you just want to record it one bit at a time. You make your bass and you're happy with your bass, then you want to add your next instrument. If that's the kind of production you want to do, then Acid Pro is the right software for you. because it is the absolute fastest editing for that kind of a production. If you want to make a production where you just load all your samples, you've made all your loops and you've got all your loops or your sample packs, whatever, and you want to just throw them into a MIDI trigger device so that you can just trigger those samples with buttons, Ableton. And if you want to get if you want to play instruments and make loops, get a loop machine. And I honestly cannot recommend FL Studio, if I'm totally honest, and that is just my absolute brutal honest opinion, because I think that the instruments that come with it aren't used enough to justify, but that's only if you're making drum and bass, dubstep, house music. If you've got Massive and you've got Serum, you really don't need any other synths. I have got a lot of synths because I've been making music a long time and I've collected a lot over the years, but when it really comes down to it, when I need to make a sound, I can make that sound that I need so much quicker on Serum or Massive. More so Massive. I actually prefer Massive to Serum, but I can just make, or I've already got that sound already on Massive, like a preset for it, or I've made a preset for it already. I can just find whatever sound it is that I'm looking for straight away on Massive. I don't really use the instruments that I've got for FL Studio. That's what I mean. As I said, I've got FL Studio 9, and that's as far as I went. I just thought I don't need anything else now. I can make any sound I want, and I can arrange and edit it very quickly. And I just didn't go any further with FL Studio. In all honesty, that's as far as I got with it. They might have added more instruments to it now, or made it smoother in terms of how it controls and things like that. Being able to, maybe you can pull windows outside of FL Studio now. I don't know, not sure. But yeah, that's the thing that's put me off. I mean, it did when I tried to make a track with this. I mean, I got so lost and confused with making the different patterns, but I did like. I mean, once you can load up your sample, once you've found it and you've loaded it up, yeah, it is pretty cool having the sampler built in. But you can get third-party samplers for Acid Pro. Not when it first came out, but you can now. So it just kind of makes FL Studio obsolete now. Really, that is my honest opinion. FL Studio does not really. There's no logical reason for using FL Studio. What is it that you're using it for that makes it better to use is what I don't get with FL Studio. I don't get why you want to have to press all those extra options and menus and which takes 3 times longer to do something. What is it that you're getting out of this software that makes you want to work 3 times harder? That's what I don't understand about FL Studio. I really just don't get it. The main things that FL Studio has got that makes it sort of stand out is the fact that it comes with instruments. Acid Pro comes with instruments, but not the kind of instruments that dance producers want to make. Acid Pro comes with instruments for making orchestral pieces of music. It comes with a proper full orchestra that Sony have provided. It doesn't come with things like the Poison and the Toxic Biohazard that FL Studio's got, which is more designed for making electronic sounds. Yeah, I've done a full video showing you how you can load the instruments that are in FL Studio inside Acid Pro. So then it really comes down to, so if you can use the same instruments, what this really comes down to then is which one is going to be the fastest for writing the track. And I hope with this video you can see that there is clear advantages to using Acid Pro, the way that it can chop and paste everything together fast, the way you can duplicate tracks, the way you can just drag and drop the files that you need into there and start editing them and adding effects and stuff. And when you compare almost having to learn a completely alien language, like everything in FL Studio, it's not just labeled like insert soft synth. Everything has its in-house look, so you're almost segregating yourself from the rest of the musical world by teaching yourself this whole new language of words like step sequencer, where it's just a track list. It's basically just audio tracks and MIDI tracks, or at least it should be. So it's just a track list. Why would you change it to a step sequencer? It just, to me, FL Studio was, I think it was almost like a dream project of what DAWs could be like that had kind of almost gone wrong. Almost same with Reason. I think there was an era of DAWs where they kind of wanted to recreate a studio experience where you've got that feeling of all this kit and things looking all fancy and whatnot. And Acid Pro was just kind of like just straight to the point and simple. And it's almost like DAWs kind of split up round about that time, and now you've kind of got the two extremes where you've kind of got Ableton, which is all about just having MIDI controllers and putting all your samples in and pressing buttons to trigger your samples and playing it live. And then you've kind of got DAWs like Cubase, where you can record multiple instruments at a time, and Acid Pro kind of fits in the middle. Acid Pro is the right option for me. I don't really need the multi-track recording of Cubase. I only need to be able to record one instrument at a time, work on one synth, move on to the next one. So Acid Pro is the right one. Only a couple of the plugins don't work inside Acid Pro, but that's fine because then you can right click them, insert them in here instead, like this one here, the 3x oscillator. But but if I be totally honest with you, how often do I use this 3x oscillator? Never, because I've got Massive, which is a 3x oscillator synth. It has 3 oscillators. If I've got a 3x oscillator synth that is clearly labeled and laid out in a way that I can use it, I just don't even use that instrument that's in it. Look, 1, 2, 3. That's a 3x oscillator synth there. Massive is a 3x oscillator synth. It has 3 oscillators. So I'm very unlikely to use this 3x oscillator synth inside FL Studio, because this one, compared to Massive, I can't drag it over to compare. It has to stay inside the FL window. Well, anyway, the Massive one in Acid Pro, yeah, you can see it's kind of got a lot more happening on it. So if I need a 3x oscillator synth, I'm probably just going to use Massive, and the chances of me fiddling around with this is very unlikely. The things that FL Studio does better than Acid Pro, and this is just really just to finish this video off, it does have a lot of onboard instruments. So you've got here that 3x oscillator, you've got that poison and the toxic biohazard, and there's a lot of instruments that come with this to get you started in making electronic music. I don't really use them that much though. Like, I use Massive and Serum for pretty much everything, so I don't I do use these, but I don't really use them that much, really. Not to justify buying FL Studio. I mean, I've got FL Studio because I wanted to try it out, and as I say, I've got as far as 9, and then just thought, I don't really need this. I'm not really using it. Um, I'm just writing tracks really quickly in Acid Pro. I'm just using Massive and Serum, making my sounds in Massive and Serum, and just writing the track quick. It does have a few things on here, but a lot of the stuff that it has here, it's just kind of FL Studio's in-house version of stuff that's already in Acid Pro, or that you can get a third party plugin for in Acid Pro. In which case, is it worth having to go through to jump through the hoops to make the track, or is it better just to get a software that can do the thing that you're trying to do, or the effect that you're trying to do, and just get it done, you know? Like in Acid Pro, you just add the effect, just got a button for it, just click a button and add an effect, and it's right there on the front screen. You don't have to go through these little tiny menus and just everything be longer than it needs to be. So yeah, I thought you'd find this video useful so that you can just have a bit of a look there as to why I'm using Acid Pro. Oh yeah, these windows are just over here. I can just drag those back into Acid Pro. Yeah, I've tried to show you what I can on this video without going on too much, but yeah, that's basically why I prefer using Acid Pro. As I say, a lot of the stuff that you can get in FL Studio, it runs in Acid Pro. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. See you on the next video.